What happens when the YTMCU's deadly supernatural hero steps into a universe where monsters don't bleed? They distort, infect, and manipulate. From psychological entities to cosmic abominations, how far can Moon Knight go? Well, today we're going to talk about that as we pit the YTMCU's version of Moon Knight against several analog horror monsters and entities. First, let's break down everything we need to know about Moon Knight in the YTMCU verse. Let's start off with the facts here. Moon Knight is not a hero. He's not a savior. He's a ghost wrapped in adamantium and drenched in blood, a divine weapon forged by trauma, betrayal, and divine manipulation. In the YTMCU, Moon Knight is a myth come to life, a monster who only hunts monsters. Born into a Jewish family, Marc Spector had violence in his veins from a young age. A professional boxer with the strength to kill with a punch, he later became a CIA agent and then a mercenary. But everything changed during a mission gone wrong when his own boss, the sadistic Raoul Bushman, gunned him down after slaughtering innocent civilians, including Mark's wife, Marlene, and daughter Beatrice. Bushman desecrated their bodies, even consuming Mark's child, and as Mark bled out under the Egyptian moon, a god answered. The god was Khonshu, and he didn't save Mark out of mercy. He built him. Resurrected as the avatar of the moon god, Mark returned as Moon Knight, a supernaturally empowered warrior cloaked in vengeance. He's teamed with the Secret Avengers and fought beside the Midnight Suns against Mephisto's army, but Mark is, and always will be, a loner. His battles are too personal, his scars too deep. He's not a symbol, he's not a savior. He's the reckoning that comes after you cross the line. He is Khonshu's blade, your final judgment, and the last thing evil ever sees. Let's talk about Moon Knight's powers and skill set. Even before divine empowerment, Mark was an elite martial artist and marksman, trained in boxing, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He could deadlift thousands of pounds and kill trained fighters with a single strike. As Khonshu's chosen, Moon Knight became an unholy force of power, able to lift over 10 tons with a high physical strength. He can even do things like stop cars with his punches and rip rebar out of concrete with hardly any effort. He can punch through steel, concrete, and vampire flesh. He can easily punch holes through demons, which even the weakest of the demons in the YTMCU easily heal from most physical attacks. He has bulletproof skin, which can only be harmed by powerful entities such as Tudor, the Vampire King. General immortality, keeping Moon Knight from aging physically or mentally. Rapid healing factor, which allows him to recover from disembowelment and shattered bones, exploded organs, brain damage, and spinal damage in mere moments. Due to his fractured mind, Moon Knight has physical resistance, allowing him to resist mental attacks from people like the Truth, and even allow him to fight Khonshu in his own mind, due to the sheer willpower and rage. He also possesses the power of self-resurrection, making death more of a delay than an end. If he were to somehow die, his body would resurrect nearly a second later with a reality warping effect, literally reversing time to the moment at which the blow would have killed him. He has the ability to see prophetic visions, which allow Moon Knight to see a glimpse into the future whenever he's in a life or death situation. He has resistance to infection, such as being bitten by a vampire. He has resistance to extreme temperatures, including severe cold and extreme heat. He has the ability to exorcise demons and vampires using his Khonshu's blessing. And if Mark is fully in tune with his spirit, Moon Knight can inherit the power of Khonshu, allowing him to attack spirits, divine beings, and even possessed beings with his own body, such as when he removed Lamagra from Tudor's body. Moon Knight's armor consists of a black Kevlar bodysuit reinforced with adamantium plating, and an adamantium mask fitted with oxygen-boosting tubes. Draped in a ghost white cloak which is capable of blocking gunfire, he becomes a walking contradiction. Angelic, but also apocalyptic. His weapons include carbonadium crescent darts, capable of harming creatures or villains with healing factors due to their radioactive nature. Adamantium batons, which possess spiritual blessings from Khonshu, allowing him to harm demons and vampires with them. Spiked carbonadium gloves, which share the same radioactive harm that his crescent darts do. Stakes that are able to stab into vampires, easily killing them. 2 dual pistols loaded with silver bullets. Some of Moon Knight's physical feats consist of tearing a street sign out of concrete, as well as rebar, punching a hole through Lamagra, a divine vampire who is nigh invincible, resists mental attacks from the Truth and even Khonshu himself, resists over 10,000 volts of electricity whilst being beaten up by a superpowered vampire, has physically outclassed both demons from hell who are commanded by Mephisto and superhuman vampires, has survived an explosion from the Sun King said to level a New York City block, has defeated small armies of thugs, SWAT soldiers, supervillains, vampires, and demons all on his own, has had reaction speed to dodge bullets and even counter gunshots by Crossfire, who has a superhumanly good aim. We can go into comparisons with his foes later on. When stacked up against the monsters we'll be facing today, this will be more of an interesting fight. There will be more that I talk about when I get to the breakdowns, because obviously I don't want to lay it all out here. Power scaling and whatnot would take too long to do, and I'd rather just get into the fights. But here's a small rundown of the enemies he's faced. Vampires, demons, the Sun King, Nemean, Rainmaw, and Tutor. Feel free to pause and read any of those if you feel like it. Now let's get into the next part of this video, the analog horror monsters. Marc will be going against 10 different entities in these videos. They are the killers from The Painter, the alternates from Mandela Catalog, the smile monsters from Smile Tapes, mimics from Vita Carnis, wood crawlers from Gemini Home Entertainment. A lot that I left out, such as the Iris from Gemini, because obviously it's not something Moon Knight can physically fight, as well as the Moon from Local 58, because Khonshu holds power over the Moon in any capacity, so Marc could probably just tell the Moon to piss off. These battles will not only be physical, but mental, as within a lot of these series, the monsters attack the minds of their victims. So let's see if the Lunar Slayer has what it takes to face off against these entities. And today, I'll be having help from my good old pal Brady, the co-owner of the YTMCU. He'll be the one who reads all of our battles relating to the monsters.
Hello. Urban Spooks The Painter features two painters, Mona D. Lanius and Bill Collins. Basically human serial killers who murder people and leave creepy paintings at each scene. They're psychopathic and violent, but utterly mortal. In-universe, Mona leads the killings while Bill assists. Both eventually get taken down by police. The painters have no supernatural powers, just human stealth, cunning, brutal torture skills, and perhaps a bit of physical strength. Their power is terror, not mystic might. Their biggest weapon is ambushing victims, but they can be felled by ordinary police guns or fire. In their analog horror series, the painters excel only at human brutality and terrorizing their victims. There are no feats of superhuman strength or durability. Their power is psychological fear. They murder people with knives or blunt objects and leave corpses as paintings, but are ultimately mortal. They're just humans with no invulnerability. Bullets, knives, or heavy fists will stop them. They have no mind control or supernatural defense. They left evidence to taunt cops after all. Unlike paranormal monsters, a trained hero can simply overpower them.
Moon Knight would completely outclass these guys. His strength and skill allow him to lift and hit far beyond normal human forces. He wears a bulletproof armored suit, so even if the painters were to shoot him, arms would do nothing. He can just keep coming. Knives or improvised weapons from the painters will not penetrate his Kevlar-lined costume, and their tricks can't shake Marc's iron will. Remember, Moon Knight's mind is shielded by Khonshu's presence, making him highly resistant to fear or intimidation. The painters' lack of any paranormal edge means they have no way to exploit Moon Knight's psyche or bypass his armor. In a confrontation, Moon Knight would likely let them make the first move in their typical ambush style, which he's more than ready for. Suppose the painters attempt a home invasion. Moon Knight could let them think that he's a surprised and scared victim, only to counter-ambush them. With his reflexes, he'd evade a sudden knife swing or a club swing and land a devastating counter-punch. One strike from Moon Knight could knock a normal human unconscious or kill them, and here it might outright shatter bones. The painters are vicious, but they've never faced anything like a cloaked avatar of vengeance. Even if Mona and Bill were to attack together, Moon Knight could take both at once. He's fought gangs of thugs before. He might grab one and hurl them into the other with overwhelming force. Their stealth and cunning might get them into the house quietly, but once Moon Knight confronts them, the fight is extremely one-sided. They could try to flee, but yet Marc's superior agility means he'd run them down easily. Even Bill's background as a former police officer will not help when a superhero is tossing him around like a rag doll. The outcome is this: Moon Knight would win in mere seconds. The updated canon confirms that painters are nothing more than mortal violent killers, which means that a god-touched crime fighter would make quick work of them. Marc could knock them out cold or even accidentally kill them with the sheer force of a single punch. Either way, he stops their rampage with minimal effort, and it ends with the painters bloody and bound for the authorities, or worse, probably dead and tortured in a way similar to what they've done to their victims. Their reign of terror would end the night they encounter the fist of Khonshu.
Next up are the Mimics from Vita Carnis. In this analog horror documentary series, the Mimics, also known as Trudatum Carnis, are humanoid meat creatures spawned from the alien crawl organism. They are basically living husks of muscle and flesh that haunt and eat humans. The mimics are depicted as eyeless, fanged monsters that grow from fungus-like pods in prowl towns. By the lore, mimics are fully terrestrial in origin, but grossly mutated. One description calls them the first hostile species of the crawl, and notes they feed almost exclusively on human flesh. Physically, mimics resemble skinless humans with sinewy arms, toothy grins, and contort their bodies, creepily crawling under doors or expanding for intimidation. They can hide in furniture or vent openings. They have razor-sharp teeth and insane bite force, and they can grow larger. An elder mimic can become huge. They are relentless predators. If they smell blood or hear noise, they attack. They lack any organized intelligence or speech. They just want to devour people. Mimics have overrun entire towns in the lore. One example shows a swarm of them overwhelming military teams, and they can easily crush skulls, snap necks, and chew through bone as depicted in the defense videos of their series. Their bite force is described as insane, and they relentlessly pursue any scent of blood or noise. Mimics are tough, but conventional attacks hurt them. Gunshots, especially headshots, or decapitation are effective. A defense video for this series explicitly advises shooting them in the head or legs to stop them. They have no magic shield. A sufficiently strong blow or slice can cripple one. They are mortal beasts, not ethereal demons. They also seem driven by basic hunger rather than cunning strategy, so predictable once spotted.
Moon Knight is well suited to battle a mimic because he has keen tactical instincts and enhanced physical abilities. A mimic's greatest weapon, impersonation and surprise, might let it get close, but Spector is a trained mercenary and detective. He would likely notice something off about a disguised mimic. Perhaps the uncanny fixed grin, odd body proportions, or the way it moves without speaking. If the mimic tries to lure him by mimicking a human voice, one of their known behaviors, Moon Knight's experience with internal voices, hello Khonshu and the altars, means he wouldn't be fooled by an imitation. Once exposed, the mimic would drop the charade and attack with feral aggression, but Moon Knight is ready for a monster brawl. He possesses superhuman strength and endurance thanks to Khonshu, and carries crescent darts and a truncheon-like baton that can draw blood from a meat creature. Unlike the hapless citizens in Vita Carnis, Moon Knight won't freeze in terror when a gaunt nightmare lunges from the closet. He'll react in a split second, likely hurling a crescent dart straight into the mimic's eye or torso. The battle would be intense and up close. Imagine a mimic slithering out from underneath the couch to pursue. Moon Knight could intercept it mid-leap, blocking a claw swipe with an armored forearm. A vicious exchange ensues in the living room. A mimic's elongated arms slash and tear, knocking furniture aside while Moon Knight delivers crushing blows with his fists and weapons. The mimic is strong enough to ragdoll a human easily and extremely limbered, contorting around strikes that would normally hit a human foe. Might even coil its limbs around Moon Knight, trying to overpower him with raw strength. But this is where his own strength gives him the edge. He can wrestle out of a mimic's grasp and break its limbs in the process. Indeed, firearms or blunt trauma can put a mimic down if aimed well. Moon Knight could draw one of his sidearms if he's carrying guns, as he sometimes does, and unload point blank into the creature when staggered. A headshot or two would significantly weaken a mimic, just as the in-universe defense tapes suggest aiming for the head, like I said prior. Even without guns, Moon Knight's silver-coated crescents might slice into the mimic's sinewy flesh. He could target his legs or knees, slowing it down. There's also the factor of true eldritch horrors. A flesh monstrosity, while nasty, will not break the spirit. Lacking a psychological advantage over Marc, the mimic loses a key edge it normally enjoys. If the mimic he's fighting happens to be an elder mimic, the challenge would ramp up, but truly not much. An elder mimic would be taller and more resilient, possibly shrugging off minor injuries. It wouldn't flee even if Moon Knight tries the intimidation route. But an elder wouldn't be so easily spooked regardless. Moon Knight would have to inflict greater damage, perhaps by using environmental weapons. He might kick the creature back into a bookshelf and then topple it onto the mimic, pinning it momentarily. A creative Spector could even use the mimic's contortions against it. For example, luring it into squeezing through a tight space and then trapping it there, smashing it down. Ultimately, Moon Knight's goal is to hit critical weak points. He could smash the mimic's head on the floor repeatedly or drive one of his crescent blades through its gaping mouth. Given that authorities in Vita Carnis do kill capture mimics with enough bullets or containment, Moon Knight certainly has the capability to do so in single combat. The outcome is Moon Knight wins after a gritty fight. The mimic's initial ambush might succeed in drawing some blood. Perhaps Marc gets a slash across the arm or a torn cape. But once Moon Knight goes on offense, the creature is overwhelmed. He would likely kill the mimic by decisive means. With the newly verified lore confirming that a mimic can be put down with well-placed shots or trauma, it's clear Moon Knight's arsenal is up to the task. The biggest risk to Marc is that the mimic manages to bite him deeply. Their bite is not venomous per se, but it's lethal in a purely physical sense. Marc's armor and healing factor would mitigate the risk, and infection by the mimic's flesh is not a thing in canon. So Moon Knight only has to worry about surviving the brawl, which he definitely would. In the end, the white-clad knight stands bloodied but victorious over the butchered Trucidatum Carnus. A more seasoned Elder Mimic might have pushed him harder, but Khonshu's champion will still prevail, ensuring the Flesh Eater adds no more humans to its diet.
Smile monsters are humans driven insane by a mutated fungal drug nicknamed Smile. Infected victims metamorphose into savage cannibals with contorted, grinning faces. Variants A and B behave like rabid mutants, but the lethal variant C can become nightmarishly strong and nearly invulnerable. By the climax of the tapes, a swarm of Variant C Smile monsters overwhelms armed personnel, demonstrating hive mind ferocity. They have superhuman strength, endurance, and the ability to bite through bones. Their greatest power is contagion. Dead Smile monsters release spores. Scenes show Smile monsters shrugging off bullets and ordinary attacks. One tape features a fighter who must set an infected ablaze with gasoline after conventional weapons fail. Fire is depicted as one of the only effective counters. Dozens of them can swarm and devour entire teams. We see them tearing victims apart with minimal effort. They're even said later on to resist bullets and lift cars. The psychological effect is also terrifying. Infected victims spiral into maniacal laughter and violence, making them unpredictable and relentless. However, they show no cunning beyond the infection cycle. They relentlessly charge, but they are not strategists.
Moon Knight has a few key advantages against the Smilers. Firstly, his protective suit, healing factor, and immunity completely reduce the chance of infection. Marc's suit covers most of his body and includes a mask, so spores have a harder time getting into him. He's not breathing unfiltered air during fights, as his mask can serve as a filter to some extent. And even if some spores did enter his system, Moon Knight's divine healing would fight off the fungal pathogens. The original analysis presumed Marc's blood is not a host. He won't accidentally turn, and that holds given his mystical nature. Secondly, Moon Knight is heavily armed with melee weapons that do not run out of ammo. In a scenario where bullets are not doing the trick, Marc can fall back on pure physical power, smashing a Smiler's skull with an adamantium-reinforced truncheon, for instance. His strength means he can literally tear limbs off of an infected if needed, which can neutralize the immediate threat of being attacked. Thirdly, Khonshu's mental protection covers him from the psychological aspect. The sight of cackling, deformed people, or the naturally fear-inducing aura of the Smilers who laugh as they eat you alive, could panic an average person. Marc, however, has stared down psychological horror before. He won't be disoriented by the lunatic laughter or any hallucinations from fungal toxin. In fact, Khonshu might immunize him to any neurochemical effects of the fungus. Some analog lore suggests the fungus induces despair or hallucination, but Marc's mind stays clear. This means Moon Knight fights with focus and can execute tactics mid-battle, whereas victims usually get overwhelmed by chaos. Finally, Moon Knight could use environmental weapons just as effectively as his personal gear. Facing a horde of Smilers, he would know to utilize fire. The canon from the Smile tape shows even military units were overrun, but they didn't have someone with Marc's combination of power and knowledge. Marc would prioritize not just killing the infected, but containing the outbreak. He's the type to burn corpses and avoid spreading contamination. The strategic mindset, thanks to the updated info about how the spores work, is an advantage. He will make rookie mistakes like getting swarmed in tight quarters and neglecting to burn remains. Picture a confrontation in a dilapidated hospital overrun by Smilers. Moon Knight enters silently, surveying flickering lights and blood-smeared walls. A Variant A infected comes lurching, giggling as it sprints down the hall. Marc with lightning speed throws a crescent dart. It embeds in the Smiler's forehead, dropping it. But now the laughter intensifies around him. It echoes from multiple directions. A Variant B corpse in the corner suddenly coughs up the last spore cloud, perhaps triggered by Marc's presence. Moon Knight quickly pulls his cape over his mass breathing vents, filtering the air as he presses on. From a doorway bursts a Variant C, once maybe a large man, now bald, pale ghoul with a rictus grin and bulging eyes. It tackles Moon Knight through a drywall, and a scuffle ensues in the office room. The Smiler claws and bites. Marc's armor prevents the bite from tearing his flesh, though the force is bruising. They roll, and Marc manages to kick the monster off. He slams his baton into its knee, actually breaking the joint and bending it completely backwards. The creature howls, but then laughs, seemingly unfazed by the broken leg that's starting to mend. The updated canon notes the variants see of inhuman durability and regeneration, which Marc now witnesses firsthand. Undeterred, Moon Knight smashes a nearby cabinet onto the creature, and somehow, some way, is able to find explosives within a cabinet nearby. He throws them onto the ground, lighting them as hard as he can using friction. The fire coming out of the objects burns the Smiler's fungus-ridden clothes, making it shriek in pain. Fire is working. Marc leaves it to burn and moves on, knowing not to linger because more are coming. By now, everyone he set ablaze have collapsed and charged. The variant bees that were behind might have fled or are lurking. One emerges coughing spores in a desperate attempt. Moon Knight throws a crescent blade right into its gaping, grinning mouth. It chokes and falls. Several more swarm him, but his strength and overwhelming combat prowess allows him to easily destroy and dismantle most of these Smilers. He walks out of the building, covered in ash and blood, standing amid a pile of smoldering, grotesque corpses. He's breathing hard, but a half-crazed chuckle from further down the hall indicates more are around. Realizing this could be an endless onslaught if he doesn't contain it, Marc might decide to take a more drastic measure, perhaps rigging the building's gas line to explode and incinerate everything. He isn't above sacrificing a building to stop the plague. He sets a timed charge, and as the next wave of lunatic Smilers pour towards him, he makes his escape route, flying through any stragglers with a blade and fist. In the nick of time, he dives out of a window, in classic hero fashion, as the whole hospital goes up into a fireball, purging the remaining infected in one grand blow. The outcome is Moon Knight wins, but it's a very exhausting fight, just due to the sheer numbers. The small monsters push him to his physical limits due to their resilience and just sheer amount of them. However, thanks to his strategic use of fire and explosives, plus his sheer resilience, Marc would ultimately cleanse the infestation. The updated canon confirms the Smiler's weaknesses are fire and head trauma, which Marc, being a great dealer of head trauma, could obviously exploit that. And knowing that their weaknesses are something related to fire or explosives or just finding out by accident, he could definitely just exploit that and allow it to destroy them by finding some way to create a massive explosion or massive fiery blast.
From the Mandela Catalog comes the Legion of Alternates, sinister doppelganger entities. These aren't flesh and blood beings at all, but demonic facsimiles of real people. Each alternate mimics a human, often a family member or friend, almost perfectly. When one appears, it hunts down the real person it copied. Its modus operandi is psychological warfare. It speaks to the victim in strange tones or whispers, including metaphysical awareness disorder, or MAD, driving victims to terror and suicide rather than, say, outright murder. Alternates have an eerie presence. They can teleport or phase into houses, mimic voices from tapes, or appear in TV static. Physically, they look human, but often have subtle distortions, stretched faces, extra joints, for example, when they glitch. In terms of abilities, alternates are basically immortal demons. They have no named physical or psychic powers. Shapeshifting, voice mimicry, teleportation, and even implied flight. Most ominously, they are immune to bullets and pain. Victims have been filmed shooting alternates with guns to no effect. The Mandela police eventually realized that firearms do nothing because bullets and most execution attempts would not work against them. The only consistent effect alternates have is mental. They instill utter dread and disorder. One subtle clue. In the Mandela lore, alternates are hinted to be demons from an alternate reality. The alternate's main feat is causing people to commit suicide or die of panic by masquerading as loved ones or by appearing on TVs. They can invade homes invisibly and whisper to victims or appear in reflections. There are stories of alternates bypassing normal barriers, for example, breaking into a house without being seen, and victims literally dissolving when alternates leave after killing. One hint in the lore: if the real person dies, their alternate fades away, but this is more a narrative role than a weaponizable weakness. They have never been shown being physically hurt. They toy with humans from a safe distance and vanish if confronted. Canonically, there are no weaknesses, at least not known to us. Alternates dissolve if the victim dies. Example, if you strike at an alternate and fail to kill the original, it remains. If the original dies, the alternate fades. But this is more a storytelling rule than a tangible weakness. Conventional weapons are useless, and they don't rely on sunlight or holy symbols. They mock such protections. Their only vulnerability is psychological. If one stops caring or commits suicide, it can end the alternate's hold.
Facing an alternate is as much a battle of wills as it is of fists, and Moon Knight's will is unshakable. Marc Spector has a fractured psyche, but also a fortified one. The presence of Khonshu and his own mental conditioning give him immunity to many forms of psychic assault. This is critical because an alternate's primary modus operandi is to psychologically break a victim. Moon Knight, however, is protected from madness to a large extent. We've seen him resist illusions and fear in other confrontations, and here Khonshu's influence would likely shield him from the worst of the alternate's mind games. Instead of curling into despair when confronted with a terrifying double or a demon wearing a friend's face, Marc would grit his teeth and fight back. An alternate would likely try to ambush Marc when he's alone. Imagine Moon Knight investigating a report of a strange intruder mimicking a family member. He enters a dark hallway and suddenly comes face to face with his own double or some eerie impersonator. A lesser man would falter at the sight of himself with a devilish grin, but Moon Knight responds with a swift throw of a crescent dart. The duplicate form might melt into a shadow and reappear behind him, avoiding the direct hit. Realizing his disguise is uninducing terror, the alternate shifts attack. Perhaps his face elongates into a blank, featureless horror, or it takes on a demonic visage. This is where Moon Knight's courage comes in. Instead of recoiling, he launches himself at the entity. The fight that follows is bizarre but intense. Moon Knight swings his truncheon through what appears to be the alternate's head. It connects but passes through unnaturally, as if the being's form isn't fully solid. The alternate retaliates by flinging Marc across the room with a telekinetic shove or a physically impossible arm stretch. Marc smashes into a wall, but thanks to his armor, he rises again, more determined. He might invoke Khonshu's name, channeling some moonlight energy. Recall that in some iterations, Khonshu can empower him with a form of mystical moonlight energy. The room could briefly illuminate with a silver glow, causing the alternate to shriek. Perhaps spiritual light disrupts its shadowy form. From here, Moon Knight adjusts his strategy. He knows pure force won't kill an immortal demon, but he can contain and banish it. He might pull out some sacred relics, say he carries an Ankh or just the symbol of Khonshu, and uses it like an exorcist's cross. An alternate likely registers as demonic, so confronting it with a god's power of any kind would weaken it. Moon Knight could use environmental tricks. Alternates can be lured by sounds of distress, so maybe Marc plays along and feigns vulnerability to draw it into the trap. Once it closes in, he could trigger a flashbang grenade or reflective floodlight. A sudden burst of light might momentarily force the creature into a tangible shape. In that moment, Marc strikes with everything he has, plunging a blessed silver dagger or crescent dart into the alternate's torso. The alternate howls with the distortion of many pained voices. It tries one last mental assault, contorting its face into the loved one, someone like Marlene, Frenchie, or even his father, to stay his hand. But Moon Knight's resolve is like iron. He drives the blade deep inside, and with the flash of moonlight, the alternate disappears into black static and sulphurous smoke. The outcome is Moon Knight wins, though it's not as simple as a beat to death. Alternates are extremely hard to kill, likely truly immortal unless banished by holy means. In this matchup, victory means Moon Knight survives and destroys the alternate's current form or forces it to flee to whatever hell it came from. Thanks to Khonshu's protection, Marc does not fall victim to the alternate's mind-breaking aura. He also has enough knowledge to fight it on the right terms, learning mid-fight that conventional attacks are limited, so he pivots to exploiting its weakness. Faith, light, perhaps his own pride. The newly verified details that alternates are immune to bullets and are difficult, if not impossible, to kill might sound dire, but Moon Knight essentially brings a divine force multiplier that ordinary victims just don't have. In the end, the alternate either gets banished or finds his physical mimic body shredded and dissipated by Moon Knight's assault. Marc stands battered but unbroken, whereas an alternate's usual target would be psychologically destroyed. He is fine. This is a battle of attrition and psychological endurance, and Moon Knight's sheer willpower and a dash of mystical aid allows him to outlast the alternate, claiming a hard-fought victory.
From the universe of Gemini Home Entertainment comes the Woodcrawlers, also called Skinwalkers. These are giant spider-like aliens that burrow under Earth's surface. They look somewhat like oversized harvestmen, which are spider or arachnid hybrids. Multiple long legs, a single large glowing eye, and a body that can grow up to light pole height. Woodcrawlers are highly intelligent hive-mind creatures. They nest in houses with large families, wait under floorboards, then emerge to enter and convert humans into duplicate fake people. They can also shapeshift and mimic voices. They can even possess and puppeteer people by slithering in through the nose. In recorded encounters, small groups of wood crawlers have crushed cars and burrowed through walls with ease. Their speed is at least superhuman. They can operate both underground and on the surface. Their speed is at least superhuman, and they can operate both underground and on the surface. In short, a wood crawler's powers include superhuman strength, extreme durability, stealth mastery, shapeshifting, voice mimicry, possession, creation of doppelgangers, underground mobility, and even disease spread. They are ranked at Tier 9-B on fightable tiers because of this vast toolkit. They can flatten a bunker or drag a police car underground, so each individual is already a serious threat. Curiously, no notable weaknesses are documented. They seem highly adaptable. One possible tactic is that they are sensitive to certain sounds. They knock on people's doors to lure victims. Perhaps silence could distort them. Otherwise, normal firepower only helps so much. Their listed durability suggests wall-level resistance. Tanks can barely dent them. They also rely on underground surprise. If cornered in open daylight, their advantage wanes.
Moon Knight is a brutal, close-quarter combat fighter, which is exactly what you need if a 10-legged alien horror is coming at you. Marc's enhanced strength allows him to go toe-to-toe with large beasts. A woodcrawler's ability to crush a car is terrifying, but Moon Knight has feats like lifting heavy statues or trading blows with large monsters in his own lore. More importantly, Moon Knight's weapons and armor gives him a fighting chance. His suit can absorb a significant impact, so if a woodcrawler pounces on him or smashes him through a wall, he could easily survive and get up from it. The spindly legs might act like spears stabbing at him, yet his cape and suit are resistant enough to prevent a leg from skewering straight through. Moreover, Moon Knight carries sharp weapons, crescent darts, stakes, and even knives sometimes that can sever limbs. A woodcrawler's legs, though strong, are very narrow. Marc could hack or break one off with a well-placed strike, greatly impairing the creature's mobility. Another key advantage is Moon Knight's absolute fearlessness. When most people are confronted with a woodcrawler, imagine a spider-like silhouette clattering in the dark, then a huge single eye illuminating in your face. You would freeze up, panic, or probably shit your pants. Marc, on the other hand, reacts with calculated aggression. No paralysis or fear, he goes right at it. The woodcrawler's surprise ambush thus loses potency against someone who responds with calm violence. Lastly, Moon Knight has gadgets that could help him neutralize the woodcrawler's stealth, whether that be UV flashlights or other technology, but mainly his use of prophetic vision, which allows him to see spirits, ghouls, and monsters on a higher level than most human beings do. Consider this scenario. Moon Knight is investigating disappearances at a rural house. The family is missing with only holes in the floors as clues. Moon Knight suspects a woodcrawler. As he quietly scans the premises, the creature is actually lurking underneath the building. Suddenly, the woodcrawler bursts out from the floorboards, debris flying and its clawed legs grasping. It attempts to impale Moon Knight from below. Marc is struck, maybe taking a slashing cut across his side. He backflips away instinctively, avoiding being grabbed. The woodcrawler's massive body heavies itself into the room, like a spider nightmare the size of a pickup truck, all legs and a glaring eye on a bulbous body. In the dim light, we see Moon Knight and this alien horror circling each other. The woodcrawler moves with unsettling silence despite its size, like skittering on the hardwood. It feints and then lunges, trying to pin Marc with multiple pointed legs. Moon Knight blocks with his armored gauntlets, sparks flying as Chitlin scrapes metal. He retaliates by slashing with one of his truncheons while he has a sharpened end, managing to chop the tip off of one leg. The creature recoils with what sounds like a shrill, a chattering hiss. Its blood, perhaps dark and viscous, splatters. Now enraged, the woodcrawler smashes forward. It uses one leg to swipe Marc's feet out from under him, another to whip at his torso. Marc is sent crashing through a doorway into the next room. The woodcrawler's strength is tremendous, and even with the armor, Marc still feels that hit. But as it presses through the doorway to finish him, he pulls his twin crescent darts and flings them with precision. One sinks into the creature's giant eye, the other into its soft underbelly behind its limbs. The woodcrawler reels, its eye, a huge glowing target, is now a major weak spot, and it's now punctured, leaking fluid. Taking advantage, Moon Knight rolls onto his feet and leaps onto the woodcrawler's back. It's a bold move, but he essentially mounts the alien. With one hand, he holds on, gripping a spiny hair or carapace edge on its back. With the other, he repeatedly drives his adamantium baton down like a stake. The woodcrawler bucks and thrashes violently, slamming into walls to shake him off. But in the chaos, furniture is crushed and the house's structure starts to fracture. Marc manages to hold on, showing incredible tenacity. Finally, with a fierce yell, Moon Knight plunges the baton straight through the softened eye socket, essentially brain-stabbing the woodcrawler. The creature emits a ghastly screech and collapses, its remaining legs twitching erratically. The outcome is Moon Knight winning, exterminating the woodcrawler. The matchup is a gritty creature feature battle, but at the end of the day, woodcrawlers can be killed with physical force, and they have clear weaknesses: the eye and their reliance on surprise. Moon Knight exploits them. The newly verified details emphasize how woodcrawlers capture and convert humans and how strong they are, which highlights the importance of Moon Knight not getting caught even once. A slip-up could mean being overpowered, but Moon Knight's skill set is perfect for a monster hunt. After a fierce battle, he would stand amid the carnage of spidery limbs, likely covered in alien ichor, having prevented the creature from making him another puppet. If any fake people were involved, Marc would dispatch them or free them from the parasite. The victory might not be pretty, perhaps the house is burning or demolished around him. Yeah, Moon Knight gets it done. The verdict is Moon Knight's superior combat training and supernatural grit see him prevail over the woodcrawler. It's a gory win in which he possibly sustains injuries, but thanks to his healing factor, he'll recover very shortly. Another abomination of the iris falls to the fist of Khonshu's might. And, well, that about concludes it for the episode of Moon Knight versus the analog horror entities. I really enjoyed doing this episode. I love analog horror. Anyone that knows me knows that. It's my favorite form of horror. And of course, I love Moon Knight and the YTMCU. So being able to talk about them fighting was very interesting, especially considering, the paranormal nature of both characters. If you have any thoughts about any of these battles down in the comment section below, you can drop them. Thank you, Brady, for helping me record this video. It took a lot of time to make, obviously. I mean, you see the runtime and all the stuff that's put into this. If you guys would like to see a part 2, just know it is totally possible. There are a lot of analog horror and a lot of entities. Or if you'd like to see another character like Blood Hunter or any of the vampires or any of the Midnight Suns fight against the analog horror entities, or if you just want to see more of Marc fighting against these guys, I would be happy to do so. Just let me know in the comments down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.